This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games. Well, howdy there, campers. This is Camp Video Games, a video game and video game adaptation podcast where myself, Junior Counselor Sean, and my dear sweet pal, Junior Counselor Josh.
Hello, that's me. I am Junior Counselor Josh.
And this is where we discuss those video games and their video game adaptations. Today, we are talking about Last Order Final Fantasy VII. But before we get to that, I have heard some disturbing rumors from the campers.
Oh God,
there's a some squunch somewhere out there in them woods.
They know about the some squunch.
There's some squunch. He's wandering around. He's looking for juice boxes. So campers, if you find yourself in the presence of a some squunch, you give him that juice box. No questions asked.
And put them juice boxes in the bins, man.
Oh yeah, and we have after yourselves.
We have those cages around the trash to keep some squunches out. Okay, bears welcome. Feed the bears by all means, but just gotta keep them out. Put the juice boxes in the cage.
I'm so scared of the squishes.
It's gonna get you.
Anyway, let's talk about the anime OVA. I think that's original video animation. I don't know what that stands for, but it's you can find a lot of OVAs just for free on the internet, which is how I spend most of my time.
They're the excuse we could make to someday do Chrono Trigger on this podcast because they made one really bad one.
That's okay. There's also I didn't know about this until just last night. I didn't know that there's a Final Fantasy 15 anime.
Oh, Final Fantasy 15 was made for Camp Video Games.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Because if you play it by itself, it makes no sense.
Right,
but they anticipated like everybody experiencing all the multimedia projects around it.
Yeah,
for it to make sense.
I'm glad you said that because what this video does, what Last Order Final Fantasy VII does, it helps make sense of the convoluted story found within Final Fantasy VII. It's kind of a clarifier. I would even call it supplemental material.
Yeah, it's more of like a detail filling because we are recording this before we record our final like Disc 2 assessment, like Disc 2, Disc 3 assessment. So I just played through the way the game covers basically everything in Last Order. And I was like, it's all there.
Yeah.
Like everything you need is there.
Yep.
If you go get like the Easter egg cutscene that all of this is pulled from.
Okay. So if you're unfamiliar with this anime that we're about to discuss, Last Order Final Fantasy VII, it's a glimpse through the true events that predate the major events of Final Fantasy VII, as told through the leader of the Turks, Sung, as he's paging through a case study of what is now known as the Nibelheim incident. And all the while, Sang is phoning in orders to the Turks to recapture Zack and Cloud after they've escaped Shinra's labs.
Yeah.
If you've never played the games before, this is all going to be it's overload of information, and I don't see this being this would not be an easy first introduction to the world of Final Fantasy VII.
Definitely not. This is definitely meant for people who have experienced at least the main game, which was it was the only thing out when this came out, right? This came out in 2005. I think alongside of Advent Children.
It came out side by side with Advent Children, or to stir up hype for Advent Children.
Yeah. There was a limited edition release of Advent Children that included this.
Oh, cool.
I think that's the only official print copy that ever existed. They made 77,777 copies and sold out immediately.
I have a DVD copy of Advent Children. I'm going to assume it does not have this OVA on it, just because I don't feel I'm that special.
I think you would have known. I think, the price was steep.
Jeez, I hate this shit.
The price of freedom is steep. Zach says that a lot.
Luckily, campers, you can watch this on YouTube for free.
Yes, like we did.
We are not blowing up their spot. It's very easy to find. If you just do a quick search for Last Order Final Fantasy VII, or even just Final Fantasy VII anime, you'll find a subbed and dubbed version. Junior Counselor Josh and I both recently watched the subbed version. So that is where our notes are coming from. And if there's any quotes coming from this, it'll be coming from the subbed version. Junior Counselor Josh, I had a very fun experience watching this. I watched it with some nice headphones, and I was fully engrossed in the story as it unfolded. I did not have a second screen up. I was giving it all of the attention available, and I still feel like it comes short of what they hoped it would accomplish.
Yeah.
But it exceeded my expectations in a lot of departments, and I'd love to talk through those with you.
All right. My brief feeling is that it I don't know. I was just kind of like, yeah, it's there. It's a nice sort of fan service thing to exist, but it's not necessary by any means. But if you have preliminary thoughts, feel free to dive into them now.
Well, before you ever watch this and you were to ask what is the plot of Last Order Final Fantasy VII, it would really be, what are the plots of Last Order Final Fantasy VII? This is two storylines happening not simultaneously. There's one segment is flashback material while the other segment is real-time material. And I went through the effort to separate the two storylines so that we could cohesively discuss them instead of jumping back and forth as it happens chronologically. It's like watching Memento in the right order.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking about, like, if somebody asked me about the plot, I'd be like, well, have you played Final Fantasy VII? If they said yes, I'd be like, it just fleshes out these two cutscenes.
Yes.
If they said no, I'd have to sit them down for about 3 hours.
Right. So I think this will be our opportunity to just discuss what that secret flashback is as well, if you're prepared to do that. If not, we can hold off for the proper game discussion.
Yeah, we'll see what comes up. I might have additional notes when we discuss it in the game, but
okay,
yeah, we'll hit it. We'll see what happens.
So from here on out, let's just say spoiler alerts for the events in total of Final Fantasy VII and for what happens in Last Order Final Fantasy VII, the anime. What is happening as the movie opens up is that we see Zack Fair and Cloud Strife. Cloud he's unresponsive. He is in like his comatose state. If you've watched the secret cutscene, you would know that this is after they've escaped from Shinra Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the hard part about discussing something like this, is because it requires so much context in order to understand the event. But that's why, luckily, here at Camp Video Games, we've dedicated a solid dozen hours at least into talking through the events of Final Fantasy VII. So I feel like we're equipped to do this.
Right.
Zack and Cloud, they're being pursued by the Shinra military police after having escaped from Shinra Mansion. Zack is carrying Cloud. Cloud is completely ragdolled right now. I like that throughout this entire little film, Zack is talking to Cloud as if he's responding. He's keeping a very casual conversation going with Cloud.
Yeah.
And I think it's for both of their sakes. It's to keep Zack calm in this very stressful time, but it's also it's helping humanize him and make him seem a very likable character in a very little amount of time.
Yeah.
You know?
So if I were really prepped for this, I would have either watched footage or replayed these chapters of Crisis Core.
Sure.
Because this story is told 3 times throughout the the anthology or whatever they call it of Final Fantasy VII. There's
all the Final Fantasy adjacent material.
Yeah, they have some official name for it, but there's the Final Fantasy VII cutscene.
Yes.
Which is tonally the same as this.
Yes. Although there are some inconsistencies between the cutscene and this movie, but
yeah,
we'll get to those.
Zack is sort of talking to Cloud very as if he is lucid and just sort of. It is like a nice sort of war buddy dynamic. Yeah, it's like this sort of like you're fine, you're gonna make it, pal.
It's like making casual of a mortal wound and be like, you're gonna be fine, buddy. We're gonna get you home and you're gonna see Sally and she's gonna go to the dance with you.
Yeah, and Crisis Core
while he's just like spitting blood.
I don't recall exactly how Crisis Core does it because I haven't played it since the remaster came out like a year and a half ago.
What platforms is it available to play on right now?
It's on PS4. Baby.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm ready.
It's very good.
Yeah, I'm ready for that game. Although I might need a break from Final Fantasy VII stuff. We've been playing Final Fantasy VII on and off for the past 3.5, almost 4 months.
Yeah,
and it's a delightful game.
And the same thing we did with Breath of the Wild up to Tears of the Kingdom, and let's see, Rebirth, as we're recording this, released 2 weeks ago. I've put in almost 48 hours, which means out of the past 2 weeks, 1 full day of each week was dedicated to playing that game. I'm about halfway through. There's a lot of Final Fantasy VII on my brain. I'm starting to wonder where like I end and Final Fantasy VII begins.
Oh no, are you gonna go old Zack?
It's getting problematic. What were we saying? I was initially that came up about like the tone of Crisis Core is this is a longer scenario that you are playing as Zack and involved like you're running from Shinra. It's a lot darker and more fleshed out, if I recall, and how I remember it, than these other 2 examples, Last Order and the OG game.
Yeah. Well, so what we're doing right now is we're going to talk through the current timeline, and then we're going to work our way through all of the flashbacks, because much like Advent Children, this movie flashes between present and flashback time. Scene by scene, almost every other scene is from a different time span, and that gets hard to discuss if you're just chronologically working your way through the movie. So we're gonna just first focus on saying the Turks, Zack, and Cloud as it is in what is presented as present time, which would technically be 2 years prior to the events of Final Fantasy VII, I believe.
What, this scene where they get back?
Where Zack and Cloud are making their way to Midgar, because the Nibelheim events happened 7 years prior.
It was 5 years.
Oh, God, so this is.
I've been led to. It's starting to seem to me the more I eat, sleep, and breathe all things Final Fantasy VII.
Yes, thank you.
That it's basically like Cloud, or this happens with Cloud and Zack.
Yeah.
Cloud meanders the rest of the way into Sector 7.
At the train station where Tifa finds him.
Tifa finds him, and within like a week or 2, he's bombing the reactor.
Okay.
That's the way the timeline seems to have played out. I'm sure somebody's like laid this out canonically, but that's, for me, as somebody who's, again, ate, slept, and breathed this game for 27 years.
Yeah, if you want solid answers, go find a more popular but less entertaining YouTube page than ours, okay? So Seng is in a lonely office in Shinra headquarters, and he is phoning in orders to the Turks throughout this entire thing. And as he's giving orders to Rude and Elena and Reno and other unnamed Turks that I assume have a role to play in Crisis Core.
Only one of them. There is Cisne, I believe, makes an appearance.
Is she the Turk that found the events in the Mako reactor? Sure.
I think so.
Okay,
because she's the only new one in Crisis Core.
Okay.
And I'm guessing if any of these other people matter, they were in before Crisis, which I will never play. It's just I'm not gonna get the whatever platform it was on with some old cell phone or something.
Oh, right. That was like a Nokia game?
I don't
think
know.
So. I might be mixing that up with a Resident Evil 2 exclusive cell phone game as well. I don't know. We grew up in weird times for technology and video games.
People were trying all kinds of weird stuff.
That is true. So Singh and the Turks are working alongside but not directly with Shinra military police to pursue Zack and Cloud. And as Zack and carries Cloud over his shoulder pretty much, he he gets surrounded by Shinra MP, right? And he does that cool move where they're shooting at him, but the Buster Sword on his back acts as a shield.
Yeah, that's good. That's fun.
It's like, oh, the girth of the sword finally serves a purpose, besides having all that weight behind it for a nice overhead slash, I guess. But Zack and Cloud, they're referred to by the Shinra goons as samples that have escaped the Shinra facility. That's what we know about them right now. They have not been named yet in this. They are, but if you have to have played the game to appreciate this movie. So you know that's Zack, you know that's Cloud. Opens up a book called Nibelheim Incident, and it's a case study, it seems. And he starts flipping through the pages, and it first lands on a page on Sephiroth, and we see the events of the Nibelheim incident, which is where Sephiroth goes berserk, burns the town, kills the villagers, and does some other stuff, but we'll get to that. But
yeah, this is like the town burning, and the thing that we've seen across multiple games.
That's right. And we're gonna after we talk through the current timeline, then we'll get to the flashback stuff. So Zack and Cloud, they get surrounded by Shinra MP, and this the Zack fight scenes are super cool.
Yeah, honestly, this might be, well, I guess alongside Rebirth. This is the point where they were like, no, like if you're members of Soldier or just anybody in this world who's got power, it's just like they fight like anime superheroes. Yes. They fight like people in Dragon Ball Z. It's fine. Like
the Z fighters.
they can fly all over the place. They can and I love it. I don't care.
It looks great. The way that it's, because you see a few times it looks like Zack's using Blade Beam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The limit break that Cloud gets at some point. But okay, so Zack and Cloud, they're surrounded by the Shinra goons. Zack plants the Buster Sword in front of Cloud as a shield, and then he just like kung fu kickfest these guys. He's dodging gunfire. He's evading sword attacks. He is just like, I mean, this is the stuff that, like, if this is your first introduction to Final Fantasy VII, you might assume that the gameplay is more like Dirge of Cerberus than it is like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. Well, and this is actually, again, we talked about it in our Advent Children discussion, which we'll release after this.
That's right.
That this is very much inspiration for the like play style and the fighting system of the battle system of Remake and Rebirth.
More dynamic.
And it does translate very well. It feels so good in those games.
Oh, I see a glitter in your eye when you talk
and
about
even
that.
Crisis Core. I don't know how well it played on the original PSP version, but the remake it's on everything, PS4, Switch, whatever. It's just really fun. It's fun to control Zack. So I'm glad things went this way in the series.
Oh, that's good to hear, because I know a lot of like purist Final Fantasy fans.
No, they're idiots. Screw them.
They don't like the departure from turn-based combat as it is.
Yeah,
the traditional turn-based.
Those games are always going to exist somewhere. They're out there for you. You will always have the original Final Fantasy VII. This does not delete the game from all existing. It's like, let things evolve. It's fun.
That's a good, healthy attitude, Junior Counselor. So, Zack and Cloud, they get surrounded by Shinra and the Turks, and the Turks, I believe it's Elena, or as they call her in Advent Children, Elena, which, whatever. She assures Zack that they'll spare Zack and Cloud's life if they surrender peacefully. And Zack doesn't want an assurance of his life. He wants his freedom!
Yeah. And at this point, where maybe we should have done it in the chronological order, but like he, I think understands kind of, well, one, he saw what they did at Nibelheim.
Yes.
He saw everything with Sephiroth. And I think he's also aware. I don't know if he's aware of how long he was locked in a floating vat of Mako in the Shinra mansion basement, but he's over Shinra. And so he's like, no, I will not acquiesce to anything they ask of me. And back to Crisis Core, that's like the arc of the game is like Zack is like company man. I am the company's little puppy dog.
Yeah.
I will do anything these fascists tell me because they give
We're the good guys, dang it.
Yeah, like he really is just like, I'm just a soldier for the good guys. These are the people in charge. They must be the good guys.
Born in the USA.
And it is the sort of a few things that like are new to that game and that are starting to make him question, and then Nibelheim is his like inciting incident that's like, oh, we're the bad guys. I got to get out by any means possible. And that's what this story is telling us, his futile attempt to do so.
You know what? I'm going to do a little revision on our plan here. After Zack escapes and said he wants his freedom, let's talk about the flashback stuff now.
Okay, yeah.
So, the Nibelheim incident. We've seen this play out several different ways already in the original Final Fantasy VII 1997 game. First, we see it through Cloud's, let's say it's his corrupted memory of the events of the Nibelheim incident, where Cloud is in the role of Zack. We see Sephiroth just cut down villagers, burn the people. Tifa, she's looking for her father, and Sephiroth, before Sephiroth departs Nibelheim, he just looks up to Mount Nibel.
Yeah, this is one of the best, I think, sort of representations of Mount Nibel. The way it's
so
drawn.
Daunting.
Yeah, it's very looming and daunting, and you see just this little profile speck of the reactor at like the very peak of it. It's one of the coolest representations of it.
And I'm saying this also as a person who's only played the original Final Fantasy VII and has watched this OVA, has watched Advent Children. This is a really good Sephiroth representation as well. I think he looks. I mean, just the animation, the character model looks intimidating, daunting, like so powerful yet so attractive. And Zangan, Tifa's sensei, he's telling Tifa, get the fuck out of here. Like, the place is on fire. Sephiroth is on a murder rampage, and your dad's not here. He's at the Mako reactor, but don't go to the Mako reactor. Sephiroth is in the mountains, says the dying person that Zangan is helping. I had a thought that perhaps was one of Tifa's other childhood friends that Zangan was helping. It just seemed like, I mean, it's a small town, Nibelheim, and that was like a young man looking about the same age as Tifa. It's just a thought that occurred to me. I'm not trying to, headcanon or anything, but it would make sense.
Let's play with some fun little thoughts around this scene of Tifa insisting she traverse the mountain alone to save a parent. So if we compare that to her actual relationship with Cloud, like the core memory they have that like saves Cloud is that when her mom died when she was younger, she insisted on traversing the mountain alone. The same mountain, like thinking, because there was like some childhood lore or something like, oh, when you die, your spirit passes over the mountain or something.
Oh, that's like a Nibelheim like traditional.
I think
story.
they say that in the flashback at some point.
That's a detail I might have missed, but
maybe they say it in the town at some point.
Yeah.
So
she's compelled to go to the mountains.
Their core memory that saves Cloud is she goes out and all the other kids are like, Tifa, what are you doing? And Cloud's like, I'm gonna follow her to protect her, et cetera, et cetera. And now she's doing the same thing because her dad is on the other side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Which is the name of the tune that plays in the flashback.
The other side of the mountain?
On the other side of the mountain.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. I'm so grateful you know the names of
this
the
is
OST.
like my
This is your only opportunity to like make this like an impressive factoid and not just like a weirdo.
I'll talk about it again and when we talk about that scene some more. But I don't know, it's just interesting parallel of like, and then we'll get to it. But Cloud will again be involved in her traverse to the other side of the mountain.
Well, it's interesting because Sephiroth's doing the same thing. He's looking for his mother on the other side of the mountain. He is doing the exact same thing, but except with much different intentions.
Yeah.
Back at Nibelheim, Zangan fills Zack in on that Tifa and Sephiroth are in the mountains together and at the Mako reactor. This is what we originally saw as Cloud. This is what I think the like thesis of what Last Stand Final Fantasy VII is, or I'm sorry, Last Order Final Fantasy VII is to literally to just clarify what actually happened. These are the factual events. These are not the cloudy memories. Oh, cloud memories. These are the events as canonically happened. Because I think if we get to that secret flashback in the game, pretty easy to miss.
Yes.
You have zero reason to go back to Sugar Mansion.
I don't think I found it until my 4th or 5th playthrough of that game.
I remember finding it when I first played the game because if you're playing the game blind as a 11 to 12-year-old, you don't have the guide yet. There's a lot of room to figure things out in Final Fantasy VII. There are easy to find, we'll say, trail markers in the sense of like NPCs giving you a little push in the right direction, but otherwise, you just kind of learn the lay of the land by exploring it. What is it? There's no better way to learn a new neighborhood than to get lost in it. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you go to Brooklyn, just get lost and then you'll find your way eventually, or you'll get killed. Tifa gets up to the mountain in the Mako reactor. She finds her dad, rest in peace, and a bloody Masamune sword next to him.
And she does her line.
This is a Shinra Mako soldier. I hate it all.
Yeah.
And then she also says, Zach, I hate you too.
Just a fun little add-on. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I think this happens after
it does. Yeah.
What happens. But simultaneously, Sephiroth finds Genova, and we see him and this is what happens in one of the great FMVs of the game, where Sephiroth removes that like angelic robot facade of Genova to reveal the true life form behind. I don't understand the facade at all. Why they did that or why it looks like that. It's an interesting decision.
Genova is technically like an infection on the planet. Maybe they're like, let's just put another layer of armor on it just in case, keep it from getting out.
Let's make it a sexy robot though. Tifa has the Masamune sword, and here's the thing, guys. If you're gonna stab someone in the back, don't warn them.
I thought that so hard while watching this. I was like, why are you saying things?
But
as she's coming up the stairs, she yells something at Sephiroth.
How could you?
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
I was like, no! This was your one shot.
I know. Yeah, she tried to use preemptive strike and it failed. But Sephiroth uses counter successfully. And gives her a good slashing, and Tifa lies on the ground and cries for Cloud.
Yeah, she, within the flashback, flashes back to her and Cloud at the well, and at this point she's like resigned, sort of like, you were supposed to come for me and you didn't, you son of a bee.
Yeah, she's taking that promise very seriously.
Yeah, I mean, come on, like what? You just thought in the whole big wide world, what are the odds that Cloud would just happen to be here in this moment.
Yeah. Cell phones exist in this world at this point. She could be like, Cloud,
That's a good point.
I need your help now.
Yeah.
Help me, Cloud.
That'd be hilarious. She just whipped out her Nokia flip phone in this scene where she's laying on the ground, bleeding out.
Texting him like,
text
dying,
Cloud,
LOL.
Although it does seem like that level of technology is mostly for the folks in the big city.
It's for the Turks.
The Nibelheim folks might not have cell phones.
What's the cell phone function in the game? That is it
PHS?
PHS. I was like GPS, GSP, GPA.
And in the remake and in Rebirth, that doesn't exist. There's like a few rare scenes where PHS is a like remote communication system within a location.
Yeah. Like a phone booth.
So it's it shows up in Shinra headquarters in remake, and it's just used to be able to split up the party and switch between parties.
That's right.
Within a single location.
Yes.
So it's like they are. Oh, we found the PHS machine, and we told Tifa and Aerith to wait at the other one. Let's call them, and that switches your party. Tell them where. Yeah. So there's no. I'm trying to think if there are. Oh yeah, they updated the cell phones in Rebirth.
Good.
They're no longer using Nokia flip phones. Now they're using.
To talk about Advent Children again, that's what really dated it, was their adherence to these very charming flip phones.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best that there might be Rebirth references here and there, but they won't be spoilers of anything other than tiny little world building things that might relate to this.
We'll call those sprinkles and not cake. No cake, just sprinkles. So I would describe like Sephiroth's demeanor throughout the Nibelheim incident as like stoically bored.
I would say stoically possessed, but there's a little.
It's so easy for him.
Yeah,
that's the main thing, is that he is not breaking a sweat, massacring a village, and as he's having a little chat with his mommy, he says, "Mother was supposed to become the ruler of this planet with her superior power of knowledge." He sounds like Tim Rogers, honestly, in this. But Zack finds Tifa after she'd been attacked by Sephiroth. And Tifa, she's like, that's where she goes, I hate Shinra, I hate you. Zack's like, that sucks. I'm not going to ask you to forgive me. Like, I get it. That sucks, but I get it. And then Zack goes to, we'll say, face Sephiroth.
To try and wallop Sephiroth.
Yeah, we got a real, this is my favorite scene of the film, episode, video, whatever this OVA.
Yeah,
it's a Buster Sora versus a Masamune, and this is some wonderful animation. The fluidity of their movement, and just like it's like there's like electricity coming off of Sephiroth. He is just so powerful, and it's translated so well visually.
Yeah, and this is I believe also converted into a boss fight in Crisis Core.
Cool.
So
Sephiroth says
all is there.
Sephiroth says, "I am the chosen existence that is to become this planet's ruler." Heavy stuff. At this point,
that sounds like a lot of work. I don't want to do that.
Sephiroth is he still under the impression that Jenova is a Cetra? I think he is. I believe, because that's the assumption that Shinra has been operating under with their soldier program and with Sephiroth, is that they were trying to manufacture a new Cetra to lead them to the promised land. That's the good guy justification for Hojo's experiments.
I thought the Hojo notes in the basement that he was reading acknowledge Jenova as a calamity from the skies.
That's based on Professor Gast's findings. That's why Professor Gast left Shinra. It was after he realized that the Cetra and Jenova are not the same, is where he was like, uh-oh, I think Jenova is something worse than what we thought she was.
Right. But Sephiroth has read that stuff.
Yes.
And so he knows.
We can assume that he understands the true purpose of Genova now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I was getting.
Yeah. So
he knows, but yeah, the Shinra folks still think Sephiroth is like their weapon to guide them to the promised land.
They think, okay, this is a fun little like series of correlations. Okay, Mako is to materia as it. Okay, wait. Mako is to materia as Genova is to Sephiroth.
Yeah.
As
the Cetra is to Aerith.
A synthesis, like a crystallization, a compression, a refinement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you take this natural power and then you funnel it into something that it was not technically originally meant to do, but it is able to do. Anyway, Sephiroth whoops Zack.
Yeah, he done get his butt beat.
And he's talking to Genova. He's doing more mommy talk. He's like, "Mommy, I love you. I'm the good boy. I'm your best boy.
Kisses for baby boy."
Man, this is such a great way to show that he was successfully stabbed in the back. Is he's looking at the glass where Genova is hiding, or not hiding, but where she's contained behind, and then the glass cracks out, seemingly out of nowhere, and then Sephiroth looks down and there's the tip of a Buster sword just going through his belly. Look, Cloud gets it. Yeah. You don't tell
not a
someone
whisper.
If you're
not a whisper.
You could say something afterward. You could say like, Don Corleone sends his regards or whatever the mafia thing you do is after you stab someone in the back. But you don't say Sephiroth and then try to stab him in the back. It's not going to work. He's very
correction.
fast.
Don Corneo sends his regards.
Corleone is
the Godfather.
That's right. Yeah, I did just naturally mix those two names up.
I was just goofing.
Anyway, I read the novel The Godfather, and it was fantastic. I read it way before I saw the movie. I read it in high school. It was in my high school's library. I thought that was weird. There's a whole scene, very I know we're a little pressed for time, but small sidebar about the Godfather. There's a great little sub story that happens in it where Sonny, I think that's Al Pacino's character in The Godfather.
I thought that was his brother. I forget.
The character Sonny, his dick is so big that he cannot have like traditional vaginal penetrative sex with women because he's just too big until he finds the girl of his dreams who is let's say accommodating enough for his girth. And that's a side, like there's like pages dedicated to the idea. I think she also has reconstructive surgery on her vagina at some point to like make it a little bit more fitting. There's a lot of interesting deviations from the mafia mainline story of The Godfather.
Yeah, Sonny is the big dude, James Caan.
James Caan, okay.
I think he's the take the guns, leave the cannoli line. Or no, it's when he gets murdered.
Yeah.
Somebody says that. Anyway, let's not. I haven't watched The Godfather in 20 years. Let's.
His dick's too big.
Anyway.
So, Cloud, good job, buddy. But then, so Cloud goes to save Tifa, and she talks about the promise. But then, turns out Sephiroth, after getting stabbed through the back with a Buster sword, which is, let's just say it's about 2.5 feet wide of sword.
It's a lot of sword.
A lot of sword went through his abdomen, probably right through his spinal column, if you think about it. But Sephiroth, he's got the energy and the gumption to decapitate Genova, and then he impales Cloud with the Masamune. But then Cloud, okay, if you're impaled on a 11-foot long sword, there's only one thing you can do that is cool. And that is to grab the sword.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of this.
It's so cool. He grabs the sword and he like shakes Sephiroth off of it. And he does like the best counterattack possible. And then, okay, we talked about this a little bit. I don't know if this happens canonically as it does in Crisis Core or even in the events of Final Fantasy VII, but in Last Order Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth jumps into the life stream of his own volition.
Yeah. So this is the departure that fans are not wild about.
Yeah.
That I believe Crisis Core does it the same way. And for me, the big issue and this is consistent up to even something happened in Rebirth in my playthrough. It's about 60% of the way through the game. I haven't gone much further. Where characters, it's like, when do weapon like blows and injuries matter and when don't they in this universe?
Right.
Is very like obnoxious to me.
It's okay. It's inconsequential if you can hear this.
I'm not gonna get into the thing that like just really bothered me in Rebirth. It's like my one, and it's a huge moment.
Okay.
But anyway,
there is something to nitpick.
It's the same here. Is like, we just watched Sephiroth and Zack do this like blow for blow, blah blah blah, and it's like, oh yeah, once you're run through with a sword, apparently it matters, but then 2 minutes later, the same thing happens to Cloud. He's like, nah, I could take it. Give me some more.
Hey, less girth. This is where a long sword doesn't help you, right? Because if Cloud got stabbed by the Buster Sword, I would just assume he'd drop dead. But since Masamune, very thin sword.
Or like Tifa, this is another little sprinkle spoiler, is like, finally in Rebirth, like how she survived matters. And her scar comes up multiple times. Yeah. And I'm like, thank you. But it's still just like, it's like sometimes it's like, oh, just a tiny little scratch, and other times it's like, no, we ran you through, you're dying, and it's just like very hard to decipher. But yeah, back to where it sort of deviates the timelines is in OG Final Fantasy VII. Cloud keeps the sword in him, and he physically throws Sephiroth into the live stream. In this and in Crisis Core, they retconned it that it's Sephiroth's choice to go into the live stream.
It's an interesting deviation. Yeah. I think because in how we see it in this anime, that shows Sephiroth's playing the long game, and that he's
I think that's
more
why
villainous and aware of what happens next.
Right. It's like, oh, he has a plan.
Yeah.
Maybe it was his plan all along. Just take Genova, go into the live stream. Maybe he read enough. He's like, this is our way. This is how we're gonna do it. This is how we're gonna summon Meteor.
Step 2.
Yeah.
So Cloud collapses, and the unnamed Turk, what was the name you
I think it's Cisne.
Cisne, okay.
Who, has shown up more throughout.
We see that a Turk had shown up prior or during the fight, saw what happened, and then called in HQ. Back in Nibelheim Village, Zangan, he's carrying Tifa off. It seems that he was able to come and take her away. And then we see the Shinra crime scene cleanup in the Maka reactor. And we get to see Hojo. We get to see the evil man himself.
I think it's retconned a little bit from the original game. The original game, we see them in Shinra Mansion with Hojo being like, these are my specimens now. But they just made it more logically. It's like, oh, that's going to happen in the reactor. Hojo's like in charge, saying like, dispose of that, keep that,
Yeah. And Hojo orders Zack to be taken to the mansion basement. And then he's like, right, do you know who Mr. Veld is? Hojo says, like, how is our Mr. Veld? And I've never seen that name before. My first instinct was that was Vincent, but he's Vincent Valentine, right?
That's correct.
I don't know. But that seemed important because Hojo doesn't have that many lines, but he mentions Mr. Veld.
He is. I just cheated and looked it up.
Is he okay, my guess, before you tell me the answer,
try it.
Is he, I assume at this point, Sang is not the head of the Turks. Is this the former Turk leader? Hell yeah. I assume that's yes.
This character, Verdot or Veld, had been established as the leader of the Turks in Before Crisis.
Okay, cool. That makes sense then, because Hojo seems to have very little respect for Sang. Like, Sang is basically he asks about the destruction or the disposal of the village, which I believe is where they're going to start gang stalking Cloud when he goes back, right? Or gaslighting him.
Yeah.
And they're like installing plants to be like, no, there was no fire at Nibelheim.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like it's just in case a witness returns.
Yeah.
Is the whole reason for this.
Yeah, it's wild.
Just to gaslight any witness who might return.
Yeah.
I
mean, Hojo's brilliant, if not an asshole.
Yeah, one fun thing about the mention of this Mr. Veld is it establishes this OVA as the bridge between Before Crisis and Crisis Core.
Okay.
As like what this story is all about.
That explains why they they give like hero shots to a lot of the Turks.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah. But Hojo, he tells he wants Zack, and then after like seeing Cloud's body, he's like, wait, this is the one that defeated Sephiroth? Like, let's take that one too. I like that one. I like the smell of this guy.
Yeah, another nice retcon, I guess, of why not just execute Cloud? You know,
I mean, he might perhaps recognize some sort of greatness that could be exploited.
That's what I'm saying. Is that one line makes it like so you're like, oh, okay, it makes sense why he would save just this one low rung like cop that was still there.
I also thought, okay, wait, Tifa didn't even get a cut off onto Sephiroth. Like none of Sephiroth's blood is on the Masamune, is what I'm getting at. Because I thought maybe if Cloud had been it's like werewolf vampire blood type of lore, where it's like if you get the blood of them in you, then you've got a little bit of them with you forever. But there's no Sephiroth blood on that sword, so ignore this. And that's the end of the flashback material. So where we left off in present day is Zack is still eluding the Shinra forces and the Turks. They had just offered him, freedom, or no, I'm sorry, they had just offered him his life if he came peacefully, but he said he wants his freedom.
Which, I'll just note it's interesting not to show them being put in those like vats of Mako and the experiments being done on them.
In the flashback, we do see them in the vats.
Oh, we just see them. Okay, we don't see them. Okay.
I'm sorry, in the flashback in the game.
Right, yeah, right. Okay, that's what I was saying. That's like the one thing they left out.
Yeah. So, but at this point, Zack, he's beat up all of the military police. And he steals a motorcycle.
They're just like, oh, cool, a motorcycle. Which is funny. There's like still guys standing and like staring them down.
It's like they know better. They know better than to fuck around.
Like, well, just let him take the motorcycle. It's fine.
Yeah. Just like if I was a Shinra guy, I would just like lay on the ground and like dent my helmet and be like, oh, what happened? I'm a coward. The Turks are pursuing them via helicopter, and they ascertain that Zack is headed toward Midgar with Cloud. They escape the helicopter in some underground tunnels. Sang back in Shinra headquarters, he's told that Zack and Cloud are found, and he's almost like he knows their backstories. He understands what Zack and Cloud have been put through. He doesn't seem to like Hojo. I think Sang is an this film does a lot of credit towards Sang as a character.
Yeah.
It gives him a lot of empathy. I see him as a much more noble character than I first thought him to be.
Yeah, it's setting up the whole incident at large to be even more tragic than it already is. That Sang and the Turks weren't necessarily interested in like, oh, just take them dead or alive. They actually wanted to like scoop these guys up.
That's right. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because when the Turks got involved after the military police had them all surrounded, one of the military police soldiers like kind of grumbled. He's like, those Turks just do whatever they want. Like they don't even like and that is important later in this anime. Not necessarily in the story overall, but in this anime that seems important. And we'll get to that later. But Zack's bike runs out of gas. And that's when they hitch a ride on the truck. This is the truck that we are treated to in the flashback in the game. It's like I love like the design of like Japanese farm trucks. As a farmer myself, I get a lot of advertisements now.
Because R.I.P. Akira Toriyama and drawing small trucks.
Yes.
You know,
well, that's just like
animated small trucks. Like
that's just Japan. Japan
right.
has small trucks.
Yeah,
but yeah, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama.
But that was like a thing you'll always notice, like throughout Dragon Ball or whatever.
Yeah. But these trucks, man, they're great. I think I've even talked about them before, where it's just like those small trucks, they have the same size beds as these fuck off huge trucks that jerks in the suburbs get. Yeah, we've definitely talked about this.
Yeah. Wait. Did we talk about the order for all the Turks to go out and the little like hero walk that shows them all? That happens right before the truck scene, I believe. Yeah, Zack runs out of gas, and then we see like the Turks being ordered out to go find them.
That's where we get the hero shot of all the Turks. That's right. Yeah, they're just getting loaded up to go. They are like, they have orders. Everybody, Shinra across the board, an APB, take these guys in alive or dead. And the Turks are the best chance for them to get them alive. Yeah. Whereas, the soldiers, all the soldiers have guns and swords. So they have hammers and they're looking for nails.
Right. And so, yeah, there's just this wall of Turks that normal people have probably not seen, but I'm pretty sure they're all featured in Before Crisis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Zack, he plans for they're in the back of the truck. Cloud, he's still unresponsive. And Zack, he's just like so charming. Like he's just like making plans for the future. He's gonna, he plants the idea of becoming mercenaries, of doing anything that they'll get paid to do. And if you're a guy with a giant sword on your back, people are going to pay you to use that sword most likely, especially with their skill set.
This was like an interesting, I guess, translation choice of, instead of using the word mercenary like they do in the original game.
That's right.
There's like, we'll do everything for money.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre. I haven't watched the English dub recently. I don't know if they use the word mercenary or not, but yeah, in the sub, they're just like, everything. Yeah, we will do everything. Easy things, hard things, adventurous things. Like
they even make a direct quote from the game. Well, there's a couple of them as in these flashback segments, because the truck driver says, like, you're young, like go through many hardships while you're still young and find that path of yours. That's really good advice, buddy.
Yeah.
Like go through the shit. You're going to go through shit. Like life sucks, but like that's the point.
Which is a different characterization than the game. In the game, it's like Zack just keeps talking like the puppy dog that he is.
Yeah,
and the truck driver's just like, shut up.
The truck driver's more like distressed. He's like, I don't think you understood what I meant when I said like do everything. I didn't mean literally do everything. But Zack's like spidey sense goes off and he takes a sniper's bullet. The sniper, the person behind the sniper rifle, is not a Turk. That is a Shinra soldier, because you hear them muttering like, shouldn't we wait for quote unquote them? That they're talking about the Turks, and they're like, no, like let's take the shot while we can, essentially. And student filmmaking 101, do not end your film on fade to black, gunshot. It is so overdone. There's no excuse at this point. If you've seen, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound snobbish, but it is a amateurish filmmaking decision to go fade to black. Cloud, get down.
Especially so, like they make it so the assumption here is Zack was just one shot done, and somehow Cloud survives.
This is the inconsistency between this and the film. The game's flashback.
Right. So
yeah, go ahead.
We'll probably talk more about the game flashback next week, but it's probably, I think that one's actually probably, I don't know, these two are in last place for how this scene's covered.
Okay, Crisis Core handles it best, you think? Crisis
Core is the best coverage of how this all played out. So in this one, you get what you just described. The game is these cops just brutally gunning down like a Zack that they've chased down.
Yeah. Maybe he's taking a sniper's bullet at that point, and that would weaken him so that they could get him to that point.
Yeah, but then they go, what about this other guy? And they go, leave him.
Yeah, leave him. He'll
Why
just
not?
die of exposure,
Right?
or whatever.
Which is very, very dumb.
Well, these are not Turks that are handling it. These are dumbass Shinra military police. These are cops, man.
Yeah.
You want man, cops aren't gonna help.
Cops know one thing, and that's pull a trigger. No, so
I'm just watching the credits right now, and whoever voiced Sung was named John Waters.
right.
Not, I assume
We can maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but I do want to talk about the Crisis Core version of this.
Please.
Because we don't really have another opportunity. I think that is good to talk about it. I love it so much. I'm going to spoil the game for you.
That's fine.
Zack dies.
Oh my God.
So, they lay it out that I'm pretty sure like the truck gets shot at and as like a thing, like an awareness of like we're surrounded. Maybe Zack gets injured, and he hides Cloud, which makes way more sense.
Yeah.
So like instead of he's right there, let's just off him. They're like, I don't know where the other guy went. I think.
How's he hide him? He like just like put like a.
I think he just puts
it
it like behind a rock or something.
Yeah.
That part I don't remember 100%. But what I do love is that he gets surrounded by all these cops, and he's just like. He says something like, "Oh boy, the price of freedom sure is steep." And I thought like, "Oh, that's the end of the game." And then all of a sudden you're playing again and you get to murder just line after line of cops if you've like over leveled the way I did. I'm just like keep like drop striking into these guys, just murdering them. But then eventually like what's happening is as they're weakening him throughout the game, you've been using this thing. I think it's called like the digital mind wave is like how like your top tier powers are activated. It's basically a slot machine going off in the corner, and it's based on like his memories of friends and like people he's met. And you keep getting these flashbacks where those are being erased. And he gets a little weaker as each batch of like people is erased. So he forgets about his friend Angio, who's the main character. He gets about Cloud. The very last one, and he's like desperately trying to hang on to it, is Aerith. And then it's like, she's gone. And then you get, from his point of view, like in his eyes, them just gunning him down point blank.
Yeah. You just mentioned Aerith. Not a sight of her in this.
No.
Not a mention, not a scent, not a taste of her.
Right.
Nothing. It's weird. Not weird because she has nothing to do with this incident, but she's so important to every character involved. It's just I'm now just realizing I was like, oh right, there's absolutely no Aerith in this.
Yeah, it's interesting, and then we get one more scene to give a deeper explanation of why Cloud thinks he's Zack.
Yeah,
where with like Zack's dying breath, like Cloud finds his way back to him and is like crawling, and Zack does this little speech of like, Cloud, you will be my living legacy. And it's like, well, they both have been swimming in like Genova cells and Mako for 5 years right next to each other.
Yeah.
That you can see how like, oh, their memories have almost melded together in a way.
Yeah.
In a very confusing way.
I would love to introduce a realization or a thought that I had while I was taking notes for this. Okay. Zack and Cloud, they're both being infused with Genova cells.
Mm-hmm.
What is Genova known to do?
It's like a
Mimic
memory
other
infection.
life forms.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Cloud is literally like, I see this as Cloud is like inadvertently mimicking Zack as a result of the Genova corruption. As much as it is his emotional connection with Zack, it is also as a result of his like DNA getting spliced with Genova cells, and that he's like, he's like literally when the T-1000. We've talked about Terminator 2 a couple
Always
times.
bringing up Terminator.
I mean,
great point of reference.
Terminator 2 actually has some thematic similarities.
We will always be relating things back to Terminator and Evangelion.
Well, the T-1000 when it falls into the lava, right?
Mm-hmm.
it starts morphing into all of the other things it had assumed.
Yeah.
I see that as kind of like, this is like, Cloud is a failure of and when they say Sephiroth clone, I think that threw a lot of people off on the story. They're like, wait, so Cloud was just like a clone built in a lab? No, he was a human being who was then tinkered with in a lab.
Like he was given that infection that makes him pretty much the same as these Sephiroth clones in a lot of ways. But since he was still a human being with a background of memories that were connected to other people he's still connected to, he's able to like use those to overwhelm the Genova cell infection.
That's right.
And stay himself.
When I think about the black robes, these are people, I assume, that Hojo collected just as he did Zack and Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like people that were probably killed in a village massacre, or people, you think about where, I mean, Shinra's got access to dying dead people.
Yeah, which
all over the world.
I'm not there in Rebirth yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would explain why all of the black robes are just kind of hanging out in Nibelheim.
Yeah, I think Hojo, like, as a result, because you got to clean up the scene and then you got to replace them with plants. Therefore, you take those bodies, you just do your Hojo experiments on them. Those are the black cloaks. Those are the people of Nibelheim.
So like all those black cloaks in the original game, it's like,
we're
being called to the reunion, but now we're back to this place where there's like some memories, some familiarity, and so they all collect there at once, like there's a bit of a pull.
The only reason Cloud is not a black cloak is because Zack saved him before it was too late.
Yeah,
right. Like they're incomplete Sephiroth clones because Zack in the flashback we see them. They're in their vats of green goo, and it's quote unquote feeding time.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And then Zack knocks out the guy who's bringing them food, and then he takes Cloud, and then the events of Last Order happen.
Yeah,
it's he's incomplete in the sense that he didn't get the full spa treatment.
Yeah,
he only got,
in spite of sitting in that vat for 5 years.
Yeah, it's wild. Campers, if you understand the timeline and the numbers a little bit more, please clarify in the comments. We'd love to have your insight. Junior Counselor Josh and I, we're both pretty well versed in the ways of Final Fantasy VII, but neither of us are infallible here.
Let's just say we've both gotten pussy in our lifetime. Anyway, you can be a nerd and still get pussy. That was a bit of a distraction.
We're both in loving relationships, and we don't refer to our partners as the vessels that Josh is talking about. That is not within my vocabulary.
Yeah, speak for yourself. Anyway, there was another thought I still had about all this, but I lost it.
I'm sure it was crystal clear. Okay, so I'm going to give my closing thoughts here on Last Order, Final Fantasy VII. I think it's a welcome addition to the overall story of Final Fantasy VII. I like that they filled in these blanks and that it is not essential viewing if you want to understand the gist of the story, but it's there to flesh out the details. I consider it supplemental material. It's not required reading, but it'll help you get more context into the events as they occurred. I think it was specifically made to clear the air about the actual events as they happened in the story, without messing with the themes of, like, the fragility of memory or what it is to be lied to your entire life. These are the cold hard facts. I would assume perhaps even as documented by Hojo. If there was a case study being done on these,
if it's displaying what's in the case study,
it would have to be from Hojo's perspective, or Shinra lab facility as it is. But it's a tease into the bigger story, and if it got you into Final Fantasy VII, then you're a very patient and intelligent person, I would assume.
Zero people.
Or
that's zero people.
Or you were brought in because the sword fights were super cool and Tifa's boobs are big.
Seeing as it was only released as an attachment to a sequel to the game, I would venture to guess that 0 people saw this first.
Josh, can you imagine how cool it would be if we got a full multi-series or season series that covered the story of Final Fantasy VII in a similar anime fashion? I would love it. I think if they treat it like I don't know if you watched the Castlevania show on Netflix, but
no.
It basically tells the story of Castlevania 3, and it does so in a way that like is indistinguishable from its original 1989 game, but maybe that's the year, I don't know. But I love this shit. Oh my God, the guy who runs a podcast about video game adaptations really likes a video game adaptation. But if I could see this being a successful treatment if they were to cover the story in a similar fashion. I don't think they're gonna give us that, but hell, Final Fantasy VII is in the zeitgeist right now, and if anyone at Netflix is listening, get that property.
I'm gonna burst your bubble just a little bit and tell you that's what remake and rebirth are. There's just a video game attached to it.
Yeah, but I want that hand drawn,
real good.
I want that hand drawn '90s anime style.
I mean, it looks as good or better than Advent Children.
Yeah, I don't like CG as much as I like.
That's fair. Hand drawn animation does have its own something to it that I will grant you.
Yeah. But any closing thoughts, Counselor?
I have a few that I'm like, oh, these probably should have been opening thoughts. First and foremost is sort of like the technical discrepancies about the ways to view this in modern day. Is that there's a rip of the sub on YouTube. I don't recall what the resolution is, but it does not look super great. But it's faithful to the original. The English dub is a fan project.
Is it?
Yeah. So like all those, that Jonathan Waters that you saw in the credits, I don't know how people got paid or whatever, but it's all amateur work.
They did a great job, because I thought the voice acting for the dubbed version was not distractingly bad, like
right.
A lot of fan projects are.
Right, like that. I think that's a good way to put it. For me, it was like not up to par that I would prefer it over the original.
Yeah.
I was like, for a fan project, it's passable.
I'm glad you knew that. I didn't look into it that far. That's cool.
And then I don't know if they stripped all of the audio, but they did strip all the dialogue, obviously, and they stripped the music in the fan dub, replaced it with music from Crisis Core and Remake.
Oh, that sounds a little too.
It depends on your flavor, because the music in this, like, they hadn't established a pantheon of like, this is what Final Fantasy VII like sounds like yet, because they'd only made the original game and before Crisis. So the music in the original is a little generic, I feel like. And like, so in the final scene you get like, it's kind of like Zach's theme that plays at the end of Crisis Core, and I love it. Like, that song was like stuck in my head for days after I finished Crisis Core. So they're like different flavors. Also, the fan dub is like upscaled to 4K in that weird AI way that, like, some of it looks fantastic, but if you pay too much attention to like details like mouths and things, it's like there's this weird smeared distortion to the animation,
kind of like filter over it that like kind of
if you use emulators a lot, you'll notice it. Like if you use different filters, right?
I never use filters in emulation.
So there's some give and take there depending on which one you watched. And other than that, I think I mostly agree with you. But there is the big retcon of Sephiroth went first. It's like the Han versus Greedo thing. It's like, well, which version did you watch? So like, there's probably some fans who hate it. I'm all for it. I think it, like we were saying earlier, it establishes Sephiroth had a plan. Yeah. It's not just dumb luck that he found himself dead in the live stream and whatever, maybe revived by Genova to do this plan. It's like, no, right. he meant to do this. He meant to take a significant chunk of Genova with him and whatever, use it
Yeah.
to summon meteor and what
It's-
on and on.
It's if you have not played Tears of the Kingdom, I would just say end it now, because I'd like to discuss, just like as a final thought, in relation to what you're saying, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
It's equivalent to spoiler alert, when Ganondorf chooses to draconify himself.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like Sephiroth jumping into the life stream is equal to like Ganondorf draconifying himself, making that sacrifice, saying, this is the end of this body, let's move on to the next phase. Right?
Mhm.
Like, whereas if Link had pushed him and then the thing, he accidentally ate the thing or whatever, that doesn't jive as well with like the villain's motivations. With Last Order, and you said that this is how it happens in Crisis Core as well.
I'm 90% sure.
Sure.
Again, it's been a year and a half.
We know for a
since I
fact
played
that
it.
Cloud throws him in the original game, but in this, right? It's more concerted an effort. It's a part of, he's making a sacrifice. He's sacrificing his mortal body to transcend.
Right.
That is much more in line with Sephiroth's motivations.
Yeah, much more compelling to
Yes.
me. So I'm fine with it.
Well, campers, that is our take on Last Order, Final Fantasy VII. Pretty good in my opinion, and it accomplished what it set out to do, and not much else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some aesthetic things, I could gripe about. Like, I think like the just overall darkness of it is a little like, like I was illuminated when it goes to this illuminated bright blue sky shot, which maybe that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Is to contrast like the tragedy that's about to happen with the blue sky, because it plays out a little bit like that in the original Final Fantasy VII as well.
Well, it's like you're like living in the slums of Midgar. You don't see a speck of daylight until the plate comes crashing down. You're like, oh, there's the sky.
Oh, there is one final thing I'll ask.
Go for it.
We were talking about the three ways that the scene has been sort of played out, right? There's a fourth way. If you don't know the giant twist spoiler at the end of Remake, but I'll just stop here if you don't want it spoiled.
Well, campers, if you don't want it spoiled, go ahead and turn it off and give us a like and subscribe and give us
that'll be good.
Patreon.com/campvideogames. But go ahead and spoil it. I literally don't care.
Is everybody who hasn't played Remake gone? And that doesn't want it spoiled? Okay. So the very end of Remake, your team has destroyed fate and destiny. They do like this weird Tetsuya Nomura Kingdom Hearts vagueness thing at the end, where like these you've destroyed these whispers that have been like forcing you on the track of the story the whole time.
Yeah.
Like things pop up throughout the game of like, ooh, that's not what happened. And then these like black ghost whisper things fly in and like force you out. You end up destroying those. And they're like leaving Midgar after they're like, well, we destroyed Destiny. Who knows what happens next? And then it cuts to scene for scene, shot for shot, the end of Crisis Core.
Okay.
But out of nowhere, it's like the dust clears and Zack is still alive. And he's dragging Cloud back to Midgar. And like shadows passing in the night passes like through Aerith. And then it ends.
Okay,
it's fun to get to spoil this for somebody.
I've heard of two names that I believe come up in Crisis Core that have only come up in Crisis Core. That's Angeal and Genesis.
Correct.
Which are basically Sephiroth, except different paths were taken.
I think they're different parts of the Sephiroth experiment.
Is there any credence toward it being those fellas? You know what? I don't know.
No, they're dead and in the live stream at this point. It's my theory is they've just set up like a multiple timelines thing, because the detail they show one little detail to tell you like this is not exactly the same world. Where when it cuts to Zack, an empty bag of chips flies by that has the Shinra mascot, which is normally it's a little beagle, and instead it's a different breed of dog.
And that tells you that there's a multiverse?
Yeah.
Come on. It's not just maybe a branding decision?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Is this gonna? Oh my god!
So
Don't tell me this is gonna enter into the Marvel Cinematic Universe at any point.
I really hope not. I think what they're doing is and I don't think you've seen the rebuild of Evangelion series.
No.
I think what they're doing is like that establishes like, oh, there's just basically the story of Evangelion's a time loop. Or it's also like a multiverse thing. And the rebuild series is like, what if we nudge the characters' motivations or emotional whatever this way just a little bit, and like what's the flap of the butterfly's wings that happens there. I think that's what they're doing with the main story and the Zack Survives story.
Okay.
Yeah. So spoilers, that's mostly just remake spoilers.
Yeah.
I don't think I really told any Rebirth spoilers there.
I don't know if we've talked about this before, and we're about to wrap up, campers, but okay. First one, remake. Second one, Rebirth. Third one, Reunion?
Well, Crisis Core Reunion was the tagline of Crisis Core.
I'm just saying for the new series that's coming out. Like that's what I'm assuming it'd be called.
No, they've already used Reunion is what I'm saying. Crisis Core had Reunion attached
but it's
as its
Crisis
subtitle.
Core Reunion. It's not Final Fantasy VII
I think it's going to
Reunion.
be Revival.
Revival.
That's what I've been calling it. I've been just be like, hey, when Final Fantasy VII Revival comes out in a few years.
Well, I'm putting my money on the table for they're going to reuse Reunion.
Yeah, I just I'm in the middle of chapter 9 for any listeners who find this in the next couple weeks or whatever. I think I got to the Rebirth.
Oh, okay.
Shout me out in the comments. If I'm wrong, you can tell me I'm wrong, but don't tell me why.
No,
because I'm taking my time with this game.
He's telling you how to critique them, campers.
I don't want any spoilers past chapter 9.
Well, this has been fun, campers. If you like what you hear, give us a visit. Patreon.com/campvideogames. You can watch Junior Counselor Josh's full playthrough of Final Fantasy VII, narrated, whatever it is you call that.
Mostly I'm just on edibles, just really vibing out and loving it.
It's a let's play.
Yeah, if you just like somebody ecstatically enjoying things the way you enjoy them, that's and just like put it on in the background while you're going to bed, because that's I just wish there were more like streams and let's plays like that, of just like less like I don't know how to like like the Twitch stream vibe.
Not really.
I don't know. It's same. It's similar to like YouTube voice. It's a lot more just me be like, oh, this rules, dude, instead of like, I don't know. I don't know how to impersonate it.
Let's make fun of one person in particular. If there's anyone coming to mind.
I can't think of anybody.
That's all right.
I don't know. But I don't know. They're more relaxing than like, let me get in your face and yell about this. Is the vibe I go for with
the
those.
vibe is on.
Yeah. There's also a couple Rebirth streams that I'll probably put in the playlist when it's all together. So.
And also there's a whole backlog of commentary over every single episode of the Legend of Zelda cartoon series from 1989.
Yeah, we should do more of those. Those are silly.
We had fun with that. And it's fun to listen to, I promise. Campers, thank you for listening. It has been a pleasure. And join us next week for our discussion on the latter half of Final Fantasy VII. We're going to blast through Disc 2, Disc 3, and then we're done with the game. And then maybe we'll talk about one of the novels. We keep saying that.
We'll see.
You know what?
I'm down for whatever.
We'll see. It's up to us. You see, we're not beholden to you because you're not giving us anything.
You're not giving us enough. That's I keep saying, give us this level of Patreon support, and we'll do this, that, and the other. I'm serious. If you'll pay my rent, I will play Kingdom Hearts. I will play a Pokemon and watch that stupid show.
Yeah, let me rephrase it. If you're not subscribed to the Patreon, you're giving us nothing. Thank you to our Patreon subscribers.
Likes and comments are good.
Oh yeah, and thank you for listening. That's all.
All right, we're out of here. I'm gonna go back to playing Rebirth.
Look out! It's a sub squish.
No! Ah!
If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram @campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.